So, what I really wanted to talk about tonight is kind of a health journey I've been on for the last year. And it's nothing major. Otherwise, I would have mentioned it before, but it's been an interesting adventure. So, I thought it might be time to share with you because I saw a specialist last week and he gave me the all clear. So, yay! This is a happy ending, right? So, about a year ago, I noticed that I was clearing my throat a lot. I don't know if you guys ever noticed it, but I'm going like this a lot. And I kind of dismissed it because it seemed like it's just one of those things. I've always had bad allergies and, ear, nose, and throat problems. So I dismissed it for a long time. And it seemed like a weird thing to go to the doctor about. And then it got worse. And then I started swallowing my words. I mean, that's my description of it. So, and as someone who talks for a living, doing coaching and classes and courses and stuff, it was a little bit inconvenient, not being able to get my words out. I'd start a word and then it would kind of like just get lost in my throat. And then I started getting pain in my throat and it would always be on this side, like down here. So I was clearing my throat, I was swallowing my words, and I was getting pain in my throat here with certain times. So I decided to go to the doctor. And I have an excellent family doctor here. And he took me seriously, which was really great because, clearing your throat is like, why is that? Don't waste my time with such things. Because my mother was a nurse, so to go to the doctor, you had to kind of be dying or having your arm fall off or something. So to kind of start with the clearing of my throat, it didn't seem like a big deal. So I go to the doctor and he said, I want you to see an ENT. I'm like, okay. We have national medicine here where I live, so it was, no big deal. Okay, so make an appointment with a ear, nose, and throat specialist. And I only had to wait a couple of weeks. And I went to see the local guy and I described these symptoms to him, and he said, okay. And he wanted to put a camera into my throat, which is, I don't know if you guys have ever had that, but they put a camera, it's like a long a fiber optic tube kind of thing. And apparently they put some kind of anesthetic gel on it, but they stick it up your nostril and then down into your throat to have a look. And I'm like, okay, right? And the first ENT I saw was quite an elderly gentleman. I felt like he was like just waiting to retire, so he's like, okay, let's look down somebody else's throat. He wasn't that bothered about it. So he puts the camera inside my throat and you can feel it going up inside your, and then you don't really feel the throat part. I just feel the this part here I could feel like uncomfortable. And then he's looking at the camera and he's like, oh, it's never good when a doctor says that right, when they're doing an examination. And he said, yeah, I can see that there's damage there. I'm like, really? So he pulls this thing out of my nose and goes back to his desk. He said, yeah, you've got what's called LPRD. I'm like, what's LPRD? So he said the word, and after a year, I still can't pronounce it very well. I had to get him to write it down for me so I could go look it up. I have to look it on my phone, otherwise I'm going to say it wrong. And for those people watching who you know what it is, you'll probably get it. It's laryngopharyngeal reflux disease. Right? I'm like, what's that? So he only gave me a very, very little brief explanation of it. Apparently, it's when acid in the stomach comes up your esophagus. And for some people, I think mine was, it's not so much acid because that can, like, you'll get heartburn if you get acid coming from the stomach. But I never had heartburn. So this is why it's often called silent reflux. And what it is I might get this wrong, but peptide, and it's some kind of gas that's supposed to stay in the stomach comes up and it gets lodged in your throat. And it gets lodged in your throat and it can damage larynx, which is why I was starting to lose my words and struggling to finish sentences sometimes. So I'm sitting there in the office, I'm going, okay, now what? he said, well, you have to, he said, stop eating fried food, drinking, and caffeine. I said, well, I hardly ever eat fried food, maybe fish and chips once every, I don't know, twice a year or something. And I've been caffeine free for almost 40 years now. And I probably have a glass of wine on Friday nights, nothing, I don't really drink that much. And he's like, oh, okay. Um, then he wrote me a prescription for a certain kind of medicine. It's called a PPI. It's kind of like acid. I guess it reduces acid in the stomach. And then I said, "What caused it?" And he kind of shrugged his shoulders. He said, "I don't know. It could be a diet thing. It could be just could be structural." He said, and sometimes stress. And I thought, can't be stress. I'm the least stressed person I know. Right? And my indignation of like, being a coach, it's like, I'm not stressed. And then he said to me, how long's it been going on? And I said, about 6 months. Um, and then, um, and they said, well, what happened here about 6 months ago? And I said, October 7th. He said, yeah. He said, it's okay. I'm like, I'm like, oh yeah. Right. So for those who don't know, I live in Israel and, we've been in a war for the last 6 months at that point. And I never thought of myself as being particularly stressed about it, but I am human and maybe that played a part in it. I don't know. So I went home and I filled the prescription because I'm a good girl and I did what the doctor said. And I did take the medication very briefly. It completely messed with my stomach, which I did not like, especially having suffered with IBS type stuff for many years. I did not want to go back there, and I'm not keen on taking a medicine that the side effects are worse than any, benefits it's going to give you. So I stopped taking it immediately, and I started researching. And I found out that a lot of people suffer from this and it's actually frighteningly common. Um, and I ordered a couple of books because I couldn't. I don't like reading stuff on the internet, so I'd rather have a book. And one of the books I bought, I wish I had it now to tell you more, but I lent it to a friend who was also suffering the same symptoms. But this book was written by a doctor, Jonathan Aviv, I think is. Anybody's listening, might, if you're familiar with LPR, you probably read this book. It's called The Acid Watcher's Diet. And what I liked about it, that it was half the book is an explanation of the symptoms and a lot of research about it and very, very interesting statistics and stuff, which I love. And then the other half of the book was recipes, because the main problem is too much acid in the stomach, or for some people it's not enough acid. And I don't want to get too much into the medical side of it because I'm not a doctor and it actually didn't interest me so much. But what I did find, what really helped me was changing my diet. And so I followed not all of his recipes because some of them didn't work for me and my kitchen, but I did my best. And what it meant really was cutting out lemons, garlic, vinegar, tomatoes, and chocolate. Right? So all the fun things, right? How do you have a salad without vinegar and garlic and pepper? How do you lemon juice? How do you how do you survive without chocolate? I'd always had this fear one day maybe I'll have a medical situation because I'm a bit of a fan of chocolate. How am I going to live without chocolate? And I thought if it's a matter of life and death, then I guess I could give it up. So as I'm reading this really, really great book, the doctor talked about how, like, explained how it happened, about how this gas, it apparently gets stuck in the throat, and then it can start to give damage to the larynx and the throat, which is why I was getting a pain here. And apparently, if it's not addressed, it can lead to much more serious problems, and the cancer word is mentioned in the book. So I immediately joined a few Facebook groups because that's what I love to do when I'm, researching when I've written all the books I've written, when I was writing books on pain, I joined pain Facebook groups. When I was writing about hormones, I joined hormone groups. histamine intolerance groups. I like to join these groups because I want to see what people are talking about, and maybe it's going to be useful. So here I was now the person needing this information and support. And it's funny looking back now at my posts in those groups. I was like, how do you, how do you make a salad if you're not going to have vinegar, garlic, or lemon juice, And so I started to learn how to make salad dressings without using those things. Tahina apparently is, I used a lot of tahina in the last year, and salt. Salt and tahina would be like my two like flavors I've been using. And making desserts without lemon or chocolate, that was a challenge. So and the other thing that I learned from this doctor's book was the damage that can come from eating processed foods. And I know in the last few months this has really kind of got into the news a lot, and I don't want to get into the politics of it, but what I learned from what he was saying is that so much food that you wouldn't even think was what we'd call processed food, has, the preservatives, the colorings, I think it's citric acid, the seed oils, all this stuff is really causing a lot of people a lot of health problems. So what I wanted to talk about now that I've explained what it is, and I stuck to this diet for pretty uh pretty succinctly for, I'd say, a good 6 months. And the pain went away, the congestion, I mean, I've always been a bit congested. I've always had allergies since I was a kid. But the pain definitely went away. The clearing my throat has gotten better. And so I've kind of stuck to it. And then I saw a specialist ENT last week. I waited a few months for this appointment. And again, he had to stick a camera up my nose and down my throat. And he was so excited to tell me that I was better, that the inflammation, the damage, everything is repaired. So I still clear my throat a little bit. I still feels a little bit sore sometimes, but nothing like it was. I'm very happy to report that changing my diet was really, what helped. And I lost weight, which was like a good side effect. And I think what happened was I did put on weight when I started menopause, like especially around the middle. That happens to a lot of ladies when we get to that stage, and my belly fat went away too. So I'm kind of quite happy to stick to this diet. I think that's probably the processed food that that I've kind of returned back to my body shape I was before menopause, which is also kind of been a bit of a benefit. But what I really wanted to focus on now was more about this idea of stress and anxiety, being involved, because that's my work, my job, the coaching I do. Because I really wasn't interested in getting upset about it. It really didn't interest me to get upset about it, because I know from my previous history especially with IBS and other, pain conditions and allergies, from all the research I've done and the books I've written, that stress and anxiety is A, not going to change any outcomes, and B, quite possibly going to make it worse. Stress compromises the immune system. It puts a lot of pressure, and it taxes all the other systems in the body, the adrenal glands and the thyroid and all the kinds of things that we just take for granted are going to get affected by living in stress and anxiety. So that really didn't interest me, even when I'm reading and researching and people are talking about how it might turn into cancer. And I found that in I think I joined 3 Facebook groups and one of them had I think 9,000 people in. Another one has 57,000 people in it. And, they were very useful at the beginning, like I said, asking for recipe recommendations and like soy sauce. I had to cut soy sauce out. That was too acidic. So there's something called Bragg's amino something that tastes like soy sauce, but it has a much lower pH level. So I had to learn this stuff, and food has never really been on my radar. I've been very blessed that way, that I've been able to eat pretty much what I want. So now I had to be careful about what I was eating. And I know from working with a lot of people with health anxiety and health issues that when your diet gets restricted for whatever reason, whether it's, medical or dieting, weight loss, if we're in a kind of obsessive mindset, it's very easy to get obsessive about what you can eat. And I've talked to a lot of people, and I notice in these groups that people were then getting stressed about, oh my gosh, if I don't fix this, I'm going to get cancer, and then scaring themselves with the threat of cancer, and then attaching that to what I can eat and what I can't eat, and then getting very scared about it. And then what I've learned about what we're going to call the fight or flight response is that if my brain thinks I'm in danger because it's hearing all these scary thoughts and I'm tightening up every time I Google something or I look in the cupboard, like what can I possibly eat? Because, what I'm eating now has gotten, the list has gotten quite small. And I stress about that, then I'm going to put myself into the fight or flight response. And then one of the symptoms of being in the fight or flight response for a prolonged time is that the gut shuts down. Because as we know, if you're in danger of your life, if your brain thinks that your life is in danger and it wants you to survive, digesting lunch is a luxury. So it will shut down the digestive system. And then, of course, we get hungry. You put food into the system, even if it's the correct food for your diet, and you put food into a system that's kind of shut down, it's gonna get it's gonna hurt. There's gonna be bloating, there's gonna be indigestion, there's gonna be maybe more reflux problems, there's gonna be IBS, like constipation, diarrhea, all kinds of things can start happening, which then makes us feel even worse, which creates more stress and more anxiety, and it turns into a very vicious cycle. So I knew that was, I didn't want to go there. So I am very blessed with this understanding that I've been sharing in my work for, almost 10 years now, by knowing that we're always feeling our thinking. So I didn't want to get into a mindset where food is now a problem or food is an enemy or it's an issue. Yes, I had to restrict what I was eating, and I had to, I learned to make my own kind of bread. I learned to make my own cookies out of almond flour. I cut a lot of sugar is a problem also, so I cut a lot of sugar out. Refined sugar, processed foods. I had to make my own crackers. I made my, I've been baking a lot in the last year, and apples were out also. Tomato. I haven't had I had a tomato, I think, yesterday, and a piece of garlic yesterday for the first time in almost a year. And so learning how to cook food that's interesting and makes you want to eat, it would be very easy to have a lot of thinking about that. And I just didn't want to, I didn't want that to be my focus. I also go to friends to eat in their houses, pretty regularly, especially on the weekend. I often go out for lunch with friends at different families, hosting. And I didn't want to be that guest who shows up and says, I can't eat this and I can't eat that. Partly my pride and partly I saw how judgmental I am of other people who show up and say, I can't eat this and I can't eat that. That was a very interesting experience for me. I just stayed quiet about it, and I just chose the food that I could eat, or I found it was really good to eat what I could eat before I went, so I didn't show up hungry. And then I just had smaller portions, chose the things I could eat. If there were tomatoes in the salad, I would just leave it to the side. I would, take the salad before it was dressed, things like that. The chicken that didn't have, the garlic all over it. So I got by. And um, like when I was looking after I started getting better, and I looked in these Facebook groups and saw it was amazing how many of the posts were about, I can't eat anything. What am I supposed to do? And then also a lot of people were looking for more answers, like different tests, different treatments. And then people start exchanging notes and feedback on, oh, I'm going for this test. It's really scary. I heard it hurt you. Like, is it going to hurt? So much stress and anxiety. And just to finish up about this story, I wanted to share that my good news. So in two of the groups, a couple of days ago, I made a post. I said, great news. I went to see my ENT and my ENT, has said my LPR is gone. And at first I got a lot of really great, lots of likes and but nearly every person who commented on my post was, how did you do it? Well, did you take medicine? What did your doctor say? Did you have this test? Did you have that test? And I'm like, no, I just changed my diet and was not interested in getting stressed about it. And then both posts got taken down and I've been banned from the groups. I mean, I've always known that these kind of Facebook groups, they call them support groups, but I sadly not everybody's looking for support. A lot of people are more interested in being stressed and being in a community of people who are stressed and having that commonality of, nobody understands us and we can't eat anything and, whatever it is that they're bonding over. And it kind of felt very sad. So there's one other group that I'm still allowed to be in, and we'll see if anybody there is interested in hearing that you can get well, and that there is hope. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys. I'd be interested to hear your feedback. Like I said, I'm not in so much want to talk about the diets and the treatments so much, but it's more about the mindset, because we've all had to deal with health issues, like, if you get to a certain age, there's all kinds of things that start coming up. And, learning how to navigate the treatments, the medical system, your own mindset in recovery, I think is really important. So I'm going to open it up now and see if lovely people have anything you want to ask. So I think Hazel had her hand up first. Hi, Hazel.
Hi. The idea that you've been banned from groups, it is kind of hilarious, is it not? I
Yeah,
mean, you're sharing something wonderful and they banned you. That's just madness to me. Um, but I am a prime example. My struggles with food and all of this, that, and the other, and we don't need to talk about that. But it's really funny because the issues that I have had through the year with my gallstones, and you remember how restrictive my diet was and how stressed and anxious I was, to the point where I was having flare-ups without eating the things that I'm not allowed to eat, and it just made no sense to me at the time. And then that changed completely for me being here. But my sister has got gallstones. It's just been diagnosed, and she's actually going to have surgery to remove them. And we were having Christmas evening together yesterday, and I'd just done a very beige buffet of stuff, like you do. And I'm like you, Hannah. I know the things that I can't eat that might affect me, so I just don't eat them. I don't make a big deal out of it anymore. I just avoid the things that, don't need to tell anybody, blah, blah, blah. And my sister was saying, I don't understand. She said, I don't understand. How can you eat that and it not affect you and you not have a flare up and stuff? And I was saying to her, well, I do have certain things. I don't eat red meat and I don't eat cheese or cream. I said, but the thing that happened for me, I said, is my attitude towards it changed. And that's the hardest thing to try and explain to somebody. She's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I said, well, my flare-ups in the end were being caused by me being anxious about having a flare-up. And that the last flare-up I had was exactly that. I'd eaten everything that I'm supposed to eat and I had a terrible flare-up. I said, but now I don't worry about having a possible flare-up, and so I don't have flare-ups. I still follow certain principles of food, like I've just said. But and it was you, Hannah, that made me had such an epiphany about the fact of your digestive system shutting down. And I have spent my whole life, probably even as a child, with stomach problems, terrible upset stomachs all of the time. And I just don't have that anymore. From this year, I just don't have that anymore because I still get stressed and things, but it's a bit different. I kind of know it now, and so I can kind of try and nip it in the bud. But it's almost like not rocket science, and yet we don't know, do we? We don't realize, we don't understand the effect that it can have on your digestive and nervous system that can sometimes make life quite intolerable through that. And weirdly, Hannah, I have exactly the same as you. I have silent reflux. And I was diagnosed with that just as I found the three principles. And I was in the middle of a terrible, probably one of my worst nervous breakdowns, if you want to call them that. And I had mine was a lump in the throat. I had utterly convinced myself I had a cancerous growth in my throat. And I cried about it. I was anxious about it. And eventually they referred me. And I had a camera in my throat, not a camera, a mirror. And instantly went, oh, yeah, you've got silent reflux. And almost within a second it went because I wasn't worried anymore. You know, I still get it now sometimes. If I have fatty foods and things like that, mine very much presents itself as a silent thing. But I don't worry about it anymore. The effect of worry, we've talked about this before, haven't we? The effect of worry is absolutely profound, isn't it?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It is amazing that, I mean, for sure there's a biological or medical
Yes.
element here. We're not
Yes.
denying that.
No.
But with anything like any kind of medical situation, I mean, even when I fractured my ankle, last month, it's like people say to me, I'm like, what are you gonna do? It's gonna heal.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to limp for a little bit. Luckily, it wasn't a major fracture. I didn't have to have a cast or a boot, but I could either like think of myself as an invalid and paralyzed. People were saying, "Do you need me to do your shopping for you?" I'm like, "No, I can do it." And I just got on with it. So, uh, mindset is, such a big part of health, I think, and people, I think, in the last maybe year are kind of beginning to open up to that fact. But then it's quite possible that people will then start doing, the journaling and the research, like the meditation, and then that can feel like a lot of pressure to get that right.
Mm.
So it's been, I love that you said, that you're coming across this understanding and these three principles at that time when you need a clear mind to deal with this.
Yeah.
And then having less thinking about all the other stuff, the what if and maybe, and is this food going to hurt me? Is this food going to hurt me? What about this supplement? Should I try that medication? It's like just trust the wisdom. Your body can heal itself. And when
Yeah.
it doesn't have all that extra stress and anxiety around, it can use its amazing energy to heal.
Mm.
And you and I are proof that that's possible. So
And the certainly for me the danger is the obsessiveness.
Mm.
One of my diagnosis on my medical records is obsessive thinking, which I think is hilarious. But I became obsessive over what I could and couldn't eat, and in the end it was that was making me ill,
Yeah.
not the thing that I was trying to treat. So if over the last few months I have relaxed about that, and I have eaten more than I was eating in terms of variety of foods. And I'm here to tell the tale. I've not had a flare up. If I sat and ate a baked camembert, which I love, possibly I would, but
Right.
I'm not stupid and I don't want to do that. So it's, it, I kind of, it's something I'm kind of learning to do, is like you're very much, Hannah, about research and knowledge, aren't you? And I think that knowledge is absolutely power, but I have I can't think of the word. I tend to then Google, and you're saying, don't trust the internet, and I totally agree with you. And then I start to listen to opinion. So I think it's different, isn't it? If you start to listen to opinion rather than facts of something, this is what causes this. For me, that can be quite a dangerous path, I think. I say dangerous, but that can lead me then to have anxiety and overthinking about something,
Yeah.
rather than you've seen, or what recipes and things like that, and have dealt with it in a very pragmatic, factual way, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. There is a difference because you can feel the difference
Yes.
because the listening to people's opinion and taking advice from, Joe Schmo on the internet. It's like,
Yes, yes,
it has a sense of urgency and a sense of panic and a sense of,
yeah,
there's an intensity and fear and worry to it.
yeah,
Whereas like reading, choosing a few well-recommended, medically based books about it,
yes,
to form my own opinion. I took a little bit from this one, a little bit from that one, and then just stuck to it, and it worked.
yes,
So it didn't feel panicky. It felt proactive. I
yes.
did,
And
I
it
did,
feels,
I did make a change, but it was
yeah,
proactive rather than panicky.
it feels so different, doesn't it? And just to end, I've been put on a new drug for my diabetes, and for I think I've on about 5 weeks of it now, and I did exactly the same as I always do. I googled, I TikToked. TikTok is a very toxic place, because honestly, you can find anything on there, and I ended up in this massive thought storm. But my dad is on the same medication, and my dad is not an overthinker particularly, and he's been on this drug very successfully. And I talked to him about it again today, and I said a couple of things because I can recognise it now, so I'm very quickly able to settle. But I was talking to my dad about it today, and he was like, "Yeah, it doesn't work like that. That medication doesn't work that way." And you're like, "Oh yeah, no, it doesn't." So I need to stop listening to you on TikTok with your opinion and all of that. But it's good for me now to be able to recognize it, to bring myself back down much, much quicker. So yeah, thank you.
Mm. So I think Katrina was next, and then Jennifer.
Yeah, for me, I had massive, massive weight loss, and then years later developed, alongside this impossibility of putting on weight, massive food intolerances. And the more I tried to cut things out, the more intolerances I got, and it was been till I was down to about 10 basic foods I could eat. And I had learned to make things interesting, and no, I couldn't eat out. The only thing I could eat away from the house was a banana or a hard-boiled egg because of the kind of cross-contamination.
Mm.
And the amount of stress around managing food, it was unbelievable. And where you could go and don't put that teaspoon anywhere near anything I've, because it's had milk. And I had the big, massive miracle insight one day. And it was, I don't care. Because of the weight loss thing, and I had all this terror around weight loss, and I was not putting on weight, no matter how much my calorie intake was. The NHS calculator online for your height, build, movement, and calorie intake is a load of rubbish. It's not true, because I'd have been putting on half a stone a week, and I was struggling to maintain a very low weight. I turned every meal into a life and death situation. Every meal was the rest of my life. And I sat at the table one day and I have to eat this dinner, otherwise I'm going to lose weight. My symptoms are going to get worse. Blah, 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 blah. I don't care. You'll die. I haven't died yet. I don't care. Then it started pulling up years worth of stuff. You would not believe the amount of stuff it was pulling up, which I didn't know that it was there. I thought I didn't have much thinking about food. Oh boy.
Mm.
Oh boy. If you don't eat all your dinner, you won't grow up to be big and strong. There's kids starving in Africa. This food costs money.
Yeah.
You name it. It came up and up and up, and I don't care. And I just didn't eat. I'm put on a stone in a week. Not eating very much of the same basic stuff. And I got to the end of that week and I put on a stone and I went somewhere and I saw a bag of chocolate minstrels. You know what minstrels are. Don't know if everybody else does, but
Mhm.
so I really fancy them. Yes, but this will happen, and that'll happen, blah, 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 blah. I don't care. And I tried this before, but I didn't really know I didn't care. And I bought them and I ate them. Normally within 20 minutes of the tiniest bit of something, and I'd have had boils in my ears. And then the gut problems would come over the hours. So it'd be a really instant reaction. Nothing. Next morning, nothing. It had all gone away. Now, I'm all for eating real foods. I had no choice for a while, and they were very limited in which real foods. But the biggest thing, I can eat processed food now, occasionally. I don't eat it a lot. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
Mhm.
But because I haven't got that same level of stress, I can hear the wisdom, and my body will tell me this would be a really good thing to eat right now, or this wouldn't be. To the point of I then had a really bad tummy infection a couple of years after this insight, and I couldn't eat for about 10 days while it cleared. And I knew that was absolutely safe, which I wouldn't have known before, because, oh my God, I might lose weight and my whole body will collapse if I don't eat something. But at the end of it, for somebody, this is for me. I said to my friend, I need to go to McDonald's. Now, she looked at me because she knows me and she knows I hate McDonald's. I hate stuff about it nutritionally, ethically, the whole thing. Environmentally, I have all this thinking about it. We were like aliens arrived from another planet. We didn't know how it worked. We didn't understand the menu, but it was actually exactly what my body needed. And it wasn't what I think my body should need. It was what my body told me. Having been a week without food, it wanted some fat and carbs and chemicals that dress themselves up as a food stuff. Because in that moment, that's what it needed. And then I don't eat them again. I don't go anywhere near that place. I don't like it. But in that moment, that's what it needed. And I think that's the thing is when we get quieter, we stop fighting our own body's wisdom and trying to take control of it and telling it what it needs, or listening to all the different information out there, because even the best, it's conflicting. It's not taking into account the immediacy on what is right for you in a moment. Because in a moment, a McDonald's might be exactly what you need, weirdly enough. And you know, your body knows it likes real food most of the time. If you can hear it, it'll tell you.
Yeah.
But it's huge, that thing of letting go of all those thoughts around it that you're holding on and trying to control it rather than just trusting it knows. Trusting it knows takes a huge stressor away. And that stressor is not rest and digest. It's fight, flight, freeze, please.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I'm really pleased for you, Hannah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this idea that, the body knows what it needs and to trust that wisdom, and like you said, I love what you said at the end there about when it gets quiet, we can hear that. because when we've got all that busy thinking going on, it's very hard to make sense and make wise decisions when there's a lot of noise. But as it quietens down, that's, really what we're pointing to, then we get to, make those good decisions. And I have had some chocolate in the last couple of weeks because I could. Jennifer, nice to see you. How you doing?
Hello. I thought a lot about like conversations like this because I felt really confused on my healing journey because I've gone like the diet route didn't help me. I went the supplement route, didn't help me. Went the mind body route, hasn't fully helped me. So like I think it gets confusing because you'll hear about certain things helping people and you try it and it doesn't really do what you hoped it would do. And it leads me to understand that that's why like our own wisdom is so important there and like getting quiet enough that we can hear what we need for ourselves. But it also leads me to believe that I think so much of it is about safety for that person and control. Like I think that if we think somatics is going to heal us, it probably will. If we think diet will heal us, it probably will. If we think this holistic person that has all these supplements is going to, it probably will. And I've had like moments of healing, I guess, where I start to feel better with something. And then that kind of wears off to make me think that it was a bit of placebo that was going into that, or like hopefulness or excitement or safety, or somebody finally like coming around me and telling me their thing was going to work for me. So I don't know, it just makes me think of that because I know lots of people that just have done somatics and like relax their nervous systems with reflux issues and gastrointestinal issues and like haven't had to change their diet at all. So it's interesting that like, I don't know, it works for one person, doesn't necessarily, or maybe we don't try it long enough. I'm not sure, but that's just what it had me kind of thinking about.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about this idea of safety, and having faith in something. There's a huge that has a huge impact, whether we call it placebo or mindset. In fact, I was talking about this with someone this morning. They were asking me about neurofeedback machines or what some kind of like, and like she'd been offered this and she said, should I try it? I said, I can't tell you what to do. You're going to have to trust, follow what makes sense to you. I said, but if people are telling you that it works, I bet it's working because they believe it's going to work. The same as if you believe acupuncture works, it's going to work. Like I hate the idea of sticking needles in me. So um, I've only tried acupuncture once when my chiropractor, who was also an acupuncturist, she insisted on trying it on me. And I'm like, she's like, she took the needles out. She's like, this isn't going to work. I can tell, okay? Because I was so like, about it, that how could it possibly work? So it's not that it doesn't work or it does work. I think, our belief system is so powerful in how we're interpreting things that, and like you said, often a certain approach can work for a while, like journaling or like somatic tracking or all these different things, meditation, because it's and I what I said to the person this morning was, if and when it works, things like that, it's probably because we've slowed down, right? Whether it's that 40 minutes you're in the acupuncturist office or the 50 minutes of therapy or the 20 minutes of chiropractic, whatever it is, when we're proactive and we're doing something and the practice itself takes some, a little bit of time out of your regular stressful thinking, then whenever we slow down, we're gonna get back into that well-being that's underneath the noise. So we're going to feel better. So I think what's really helped me is seeing that it's, like I said, if someone says acupuncture works for them or, whatever it is they're trying, that's great. We're not saying don't do that because we do not want people to suffer. But understanding how it works and why, if it stops working, why that is, and then, because with this feedback machine, what I was saying to the person, I said, maybe just being quiet could rewire whatever needs to be, or I wouldn't say rewire it, I would just say settle. You know, when things start to settle, you know, like the old snow globe analogy, you know, when things start to settle, then our bodies are more able to make use of food or the meditation or whatever it is that, and then maybe we just are able to go with that as a solution. So I think you're right that the judgment is usually a hindrance to healing. You know, whether it's judging about ourselves or like I said, it was quite a wake up for me to see how much I judged other people for their weird and wonderful diets when I suddenly had to have a weird and wonderful diet. And it was partly my pride did not want to tell my hosts, you know, or when I was with a friend in a restaurant or something that I can't eat this thing because like, oh no, I'm one of those people. So I just kind of kept it myself, partly out of pride and partly out of, you know, I just didn't want to make a big deal out of it. Because then I didn't want it to be, you know, be a thing. So yeah, you're right. It's a very personal journey, and you know, we're here to guide people and support them on what is right for them.
I think too, it's just about doing something. Because like when my husband got diagnosed with cancer, I started going into all of the groups, and I eventually had to exit out of some. I had to mute some because there are extremes to protocols, to diets, and they're all opposite of each other.
Right.
It's like some people are like keto, some people are carnivore, some people are vegan, some people are raw juice, only eat, you know, fruit and veggies.
Yeah.
And people are healing from all these different modes too. It's not like there's only one diet that's ever healed a person of cancer. And so that's been really interesting for me to see too, that very, very like different diets have healed people of their disease. And so it just kind of makes me go back to like, I think you have something to focus on. Because when my husband got diagnosed, I like bought a juicer. I started looking at recipes. I started juicing all these juices. You know, I started to try to like figure out how we can get as many like vitamins and nutrients into his body as possible. Like I started reading about everything I could about detoxing his body. And it felt like it gave me some control in a really out of control situation. And so I think that brought safety to me, just feeling like I was doing something other than praying and believing for his healing. And I think that often is with us too, as individuals, like healing, like I'm not just sitting here suffering, I'm doing something, whether it's with the diet or the supplement or the exercise, like I'm engaging in something than just like sitting here miserable, I guess. So
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That's amazing. It's such a good example of that. Yeah, thank you.
well, I still haven't figured it out for myself. So
we're all on a journey.
yeah.
Tamara, I think you had your hand up next.
Yeah, well, Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah to everyone, first of all. And Jennifer, I totally get, like, my husband was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and so he just had his prostate surgery a couple of days ago, and I'm like totally doing the same thing. Like, okay, we're whole food based, you know, and kind of making a joke of it with him. And he's like on board, but he's like, I'm not gonna be too obsessive about this because I don't think that's a good idea either. And reason why I put my hand up when I come over it now is because there was this Harvard study, and I don't even know like if it's still legit, but they studied Harvard graduates. So they were mostly male, white, and upper class. So there's the limitations there, but they found, and they, you know, had it, I think from the time they graduated in 1940 all the way to the end of their lives. And so it's a dietary study, and the men that ate no candy had the highest mortality rate. The ones that ate candy once or 1 to 3 times a month had the lowest mortality rate. And then like the more candy you ate, the more mortality rate you had. So like it was the really restrictive had the highest, the 1 to 3 that were just having fun every once in a while, the lowest. And I just thought that was so interesting because they weren't overthinking it.
Wow. as soon as you said that, that's what I thought, because when I posted in this group about, that I'd gotten better and all I'd done was change my diet. I mean, not all, it was a major thing, but that I didn't, run around doing other treatments and tests and taking medication. Several people said to me, "Did you strictly stick to the diet?"
Yes.
Right? And I picked up on the word strict. And I wrote back in the comment, I said, wow, strict sounds very difficult and a lot of pressure and a lot of, like you said, a lot of thinking, because to be strict about something, I mean, even just how I'm saying it, how can you say the word strict with it? Even as it rolls off your tongue, it feels very pressurized. So that science, the research that you're reporting, it makes so much sense, because if you're going to be strict about, I remember when I was working with people with long COVID, and I remember a client, Marcus, and I remember him saying to me, like, he had long COVID, and he said to me, "It's not fair. I've been a vegan. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I plant trees. I do everything right. And my brother is down the pub every night, smoking and drinking, and he never gets sick." You know, I mean, maybe who's going to last longer? We don't know. But I think there's, like, extremes are never a good idea. That's extremes in diet, extremes in exercise, extremes in, all kinds of practices, that because the extremeness, the strictness is bringing with it a pressure that our body just doesn't need. And it's not just it doesn't need, it's like, oh, give me a break. It's like, it's not necessary. That, like we've been saying it, like trusting your wisdom. So to have a bit of candy every now and again, but like, why not? Your grandkids are visiting, or you're going to the game, or, whatever it is, it's the holidays, I'm gonna have another donut tomorrow probably for Hanukkah, because they're so yummy and they make them so beautiful here. And so the enjoyment, I bet the enjoyment would probably counteract the calories or the sugar or the chemicals, because, the because the self-judgment, the strictness, all those kind of things could take away any benefits that we're getting from eating the right thing, and even the right and wrong, when it comes to food. This is right, like Katrina was saying, the wrong food, the right food, that can turn into very oppressive. So I love what you're saying, because it really is highlighting this idea that if we follow our innate wisdom, and it's okay to have a treat every now and again, or even regularly, that's probably as healthy as sticking to a strict diet. If not, it's probably more healthy, actually. And so thank you for telling us about that. And we wish your husband full recovery, and, all the best. We should only hear good news. Yes, for everybody. Yeah, Wendy.
Hi there.
Patiently.
I love your there's so much about what you shared, when you shared it, how you shared it, that I just absolutely love. And I won't wax poetic about that anymore. But one thing that struck me was the wisdom of that first doctor you saw, maybe your own family practitioner, I'm not sure, who said to you, could be stress, and you're like, wow, that's not happening. I'm the least stressed person in the world, right? And the first thing that came to my mind was, this was a year ago. In the last 6 months, I think we're talking war. So before you said it, because I don't think much of 2 weeks goes by without me finding a reason to share with someone in my life the fact that I was on Zoom calls with my friend Hannah, who lives in Jerusalem, and every 2 minutes for a few Zoom calls, she'd go, "Oh, I gotta go because the bomb shelter just went off," and she'd take off. And I would, everybody on this call remembers that. And I would go, "Okay, well, let's hope that she comes back. Let's continue talking." And then you come back and you sit down and you go, "I gotta go." And I'm sitting fat and happy in frickin' Massachusetts, picking my nose, nowhere near it. And you know, and so the word stress to me always has meant, but very clearly in this conversation is not necessarily actively worrying about something. I'm so stressed about the war because all day, every day, you were saying, okay, I'm going to go on this Zoom call, but I got to keep an ear out for the alarm, and I got to keep my phone on, and I got to make sure that my safe room has tuna fish in it, and I got to have a bag packed at this door. And should I go out? Maybe not. Oh, look at the flares in the sky. You may not have been worried and concerned, you know. I know you well enough. You probably said, listen, my day to go is when my day to go is. I don't know when that's going to be. Could be today, might not be. I don't know. So you probably are not actively, but there is something constantly at your body preparing, preparing and vigilant and on guard. Um, and how can that not, you know, be a stressor, stressor, to the system that needs to be metabolized, as I like to call it. And so the metabolism was some sort of silent gastric acid coming up, and it's acid. Acid on flesh is not usually the best combination. There is going to be wear and tear and something. So that's the way that's one way it happened to manifest. And the rest of your story is beautifully told. You don't need to be wax poetic, but I was just interested in the fact of what is stress, and it isn't always what I'm worried about or what is impacting me, and I'm scared and I'm nervous or nauseous. There's something, like I said, you were on vigilant for day in, day out, hour to hour, and it had to go somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you for saying that. And the amazing thing is, I've learned not to judge myself about it, because it'd be weird if it wasn't affecting, I mean, everybody I know who lives here, it's like affected either their sleep or their parenting or their eating, their finance, something, everybody's had some kind of effect on you. And it's not, and we just don't judge each other about it, because it's just the way, it's like living with. And I'm sure, Jennifer and her family, like dealing with, cancer in the family, and tomorrow it's like, but this is kind of the hand we've been dealt. And and learning to make the best of it, and to, see how we can be proactive and deal well with what we've been given.
Yeah, and the beauty of the fact of what we're learning in this psychological health system that we are endowed with, that we're becoming more aware that it's just as effective, helpful, useful, on offer 24/7 since we've been born, or even before we were born, perhaps, just as much as our cardiac system says, I got to find a way to keep beating the heart in this body that's going around named Wendy. I've got to try to, whatever. And if she runs too fast, I'm going to beat really, really fast and make her slow down, because I have to get us back to the normal. So we've got this system that's built in, and it's amazing. And my point being is that we're human beings on planet Earth for we're equipped to live here. And we're equipped. And when our ancestors way back in the day were being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, it wasn't pleasant, but they found a way to escape it and, brush their brow, maybe have a good cry, and then get up the next day and go back and look for some more turkeys to shoot or whatever. I mean, it's just,
Right.
there's always been something. The bubonic plague. Oh, we're gonna bury another 5 relatives today. That's a drag. You know what I mean? Like, this is how we are. We're on planet Earth with
Yeah.
bodies and minds, and we're equipped to do it.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's a really great place to end, that whatever challenges we're sent, whether it's, emotional, financial, spiritual, medical, I really believe that we are given what we need to handle it on each day. Like, we don't know what's maybe the eventual outcomes are going to be, but today we've been given the courage, the resilience, the well-being, you know, all those things are there for us to access, and we might not have all the answers, but you know, I that's why I read these books, because these doctors have been dealing with it for a long time, you know, and you know, when you reach out to other people who've been there and dealt with these things, you know, sometimes they'll be right and work for you, and sometimes you might need to keep looking. But just showing up with courage and tapping into that resilience, I think is really valuable and important, and a great lesson. You know, I've learned a lot of things over this last year about my ability to stick to something, to change my ideas about things, and to, you know, see that there's, you know, things can change, you know, and we can handle it. So so thank you. I'm gonna have a hot chocolate now because I can. It's cold and I want to warm up. So yeah, I wish everybody you know, good recoveries and good health, and you know, we should all hear good news. So happy holidays to everybody, and enjoy the rest of the time, and I'll speak to you soon. Okay, bye.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.